Boob sweat.
Boob sweat, yeah. And basically, like, my hair will start to flatten as the sweat beats down.
It's almost gone in a bit anyway.
Yeah. No, it's still there.
Okay, you go for it. I'll swap. Okay. So, what was the next thing? Okay, so. Should you check that recording? See a red dot that you'll be able to tell. This red dot? Yes. Yeah. So professional.
Okay, it's good now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, like there's all sorts of amazing potentials of living this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
How about issues that people might not really think about when they think about how amazing it would be to just live and travel, but the real stuff?
Yeah.
What kind of issues have you faced or do you hear people talking about?
Well, the issues that I think can happen when you're on the road and you're, being part of this location independent movement is that there is a part of this whole thing of loneliness, right? Because a lot of us actually, as I said, we like community, we like belongingness to people and familiar things that we know. And when you travel, it's difficult to find your groove back into that, like, what I do for the day. And, you end up kind of sometimes being a tourist when you start being in a new community, and you're not really sure why you're there sometimes as well. But a lot of the times I think it's when you're not around people that know you and you're not in familiar territory, you tend to really feel like a little bit of an outcast again. Like, I remember when I traveled to Malaysia in Penang for the first time after I was born there, and then I came back 20 years later to visit, and I thought, okay, this is one of the places that I would see if I could live, because I quite liked the food there, and it's close to Langkawi, which I liked, and I have family there. And I couldn't get along with people there, to be honest, even though they were my people, right? I grew up there, it's a similar culture. And the reason for that is because they were so bounded by rules, like literally, it's like a Singapore kind of community. It's like, no, you can't do that. We can't step above that line. It's just what it says in the rule book. And I got away from corporate for that. And all of a sudden I'm surrounded by people that say I can't do certain things. And so when you can't, oh, sorry.
Pick up on the so in a minute.
Oh. Ready?
Yeah.
I know, I'm like sweating down here. And when you can't connect with people that you're familiar with, I think, again, you feel much more lonely on the road, right? So it is important to pick places that you like and know that you can move on when you need to. One of the things that I find really that didn't work for me is productivity when I wasn't careful. So when you come to a new community and you go, wow, this is amazing, I love these people, I love living here, it's very easy to actually go into holiday mode and start to go to the beach, start to actually spend time on parties and do all these things when you actually possibly came to start something, right, to create something. And I'm not saying not to balance it out, because that's the point of us doing this whole movement, is to balance out lifestyle and creating stuff, right? Like and getting paid to do stuff that we love. So we have to actually be dedicating time where we actually focus our energy on that, because play brain and then like creation brain is like two parts of, it's kind of two separate places in our brain. So I find that a lot of people that move here for the first time sometimes get a bit overwhelmed as to it's like overstimulation of all new things, and they're not finding again that schedule or that way of working that actually produces stuff that they came here to do. So lots of people, for example, that might be out here for a whole year end up going home because they run out of money. That happens a lot, and that's definitely a huge risk for people. But I also sometimes ask, what did you do for the year? What did you come here to do, and did you make the actions that you needed to do to get to the goals that you needed? And it's usually, well, I thought it was just going to hit me in the face, or a passion will just kind of find me as I keep playing. And that sometimes can work in terms of inspiration, but I think action is also, like, action solidifies the instinct, so it's like you can play and you can hula hoop and you can dance and do all the stuff that brings you joy, which I do too, just to get out of the zone. But then it's kind of like, once that, okay, I've got space to think about what I want, I've got space to kind of get inspired, now I have to do something to honor that thought, which I think a lot of people miss that boat. Right? It's like, no action. We have to be soft and feminine. It's like, no, that's not what it means. Like, it doesn't work. The law of attraction doesn't say that, that you just sit there and it hits you in the face. So when you're, again, not in the right community, and that's why Ubud is so special, because you've got the lifestyle, you've got a co-working community that I think supports that part of your day. right? And you can split it up. You don't have to work all day, but you do need to come here and do what you need to do, because if not, you can't stay out here. You can't expect to actually make a living without trying to figure out how to do it, which people have to kind of start getting serious about, which is the thing we don't talk about. How do you stay out here? How do you make a living and make this happen continuously rather than a one-off sabbatical,
And so that again leads into people living here and experiencing all the pleasures that, for instance, Ubud has to offer, but not really engaging potentially with the culture. They're going to yoga, going to the nice restaurants.
Yeah.
Do you think that location-independent lifestylers, digital nomads, whatever you want to call them, have a responsibility to the cultures that they visit to try and integrate? And if so, is that easy? And if not, how could it?
Right.
What could we do about it?
Well, I think as we kind of appreciate some of the places that we're coming to, right? These beautiful places that are a lot of times third world countries, right? Not first world countries, and we're leaving some sort of imprint by being here, right? By having co-working spaces here that never existed before for the location independent movement. And I think one of the things that you can think about contributing to is not about like you have to learn every single language every time you go to a place, but it's about thinking about what are some benefits that you're providing that community as well. So obviously the exchange is that you get to live in a place that's really beautiful and it doesn't cost as much as a city, and it's saving you money, and you all of a sudden get to have this great expat lifestyle and get served and serviced by people that are not making as much money as you are. So one of the things that I always try to do is I do actually outsource a lot of things that I would have probably paid someone a lot more money in the first world to do, like videography, graphic design, web design, to a local person, so that actually they kind of learn a bit about the movement as well, because they get pretty interested and go, how do you stay out here again and do this? Like, what's the website I'm working on you for? So it piques their interest. And one of the things that I actually started doing with actually a contractor out here is actually teaching him how to run his own freelance business as a way of serving him too, and he would kind of cut me a deal sometimes and do projects and stuff like that on a really, really good rate, so that it's exchanged for coaching hours with me to know how to build a business. So I think giving back to the community in the sense of skills training, because we know stuff about online marketing and building a business and all this kind of first world education that isn't available to people here, but they're also very talented people. Right, graphic designers, videographers, writers, all sorts of people that are in places that digital nomads reside in. They also want to know, how do I get out of my place? They want to go out there and travel. They want to go out there and learn that their skills matter too. So how can we kind of educate that from our own learnings and give that back to the people that we meet, in the local community? But yes, it is important to integrate, because I think you learn from the culture. Like Bali is a great example. When you rush too much here and you hurry people up, what happens with that is they go, why? Like, why are you stressing out? And I think it's good to realize that actually maybe a way of living that if they're that happy and that joyful, kind of in a bit of a carefree zone, yes, things are late most of the time, and things aren't done always in this perfect order that we expect in the first world, but does it matter? Did everything fall apart? Like, it didn't blow up, really. So maybe part of that is learning how people live, to integrate parts of that into your own lifestyle. And I think every culture has benefits, and every culture has, the cons of what their culture, means. But so you need to kind of be responsible of taking on what works for you and how that changes you, and I think that's the whole reason why we travel. To kind of take bits and pieces of stories and meaning and learnings, and then incorporate that to our lives to make it mean something to us, right?
Yeah, that was really nicely rounded off. Thank you. Yeah.
One second.
Yeah. I was going to pause you, but you're on a roll.
I know. I was like, hopefully.
Okay, so we've covered issues. So maybe I don't really need to go into the solutions. I have been talking to lots of people about the role that co-working spaces can play, but I mean that's a bit excessive. Like, we've got a lot that we the bits that we're missing.
Yeah.
So
what are you missing?
Well, you've covered a few.
So I guess the impact that the movement's going to have on the world.
Right, the big picture stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we touched on a little bit with the corporate restructuring. other ways that I've considered that it's going to change the world is the global community concept, like that we break down barriers. But this is like it's an academic thought.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
And, you know, like we could all have gorgeous little brown
Well,
children. You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. That's true, actually. And nobody would get a sunburn again.
Nobody would ever get a
Yeah,
sunburn,
that
and
could-
all our children would be gorgeous.
There'll be no redheads like ever again. Like no, like it'll be all. Everybody will be beige. Everyone's beige.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
But so this
Just
is
suntanned.
a potential negative. I love the idea because
Right.
I'm quite into
Right.
like ideas of the future.
Right.
That we will become this global community. But then, what happens to individual cultures? Do they get washed out, washed down? That's the course that history runs a lot of the time. Like it's just what happens to cultures.
Yeah.
But it's not obviously. It's
I mean,
very
then you would
sad.
say the same for immigration as well, right? Like, I mean, look at Canada. Like,
Yeah.
nobody even, like, everyone is multicultural and they're all mixing. Like,
Yeah.
everyone is beige in Canada, you know, especially in the west coast of Canada. And again, but they still maintain some of the culture because, again, it's how you raise your kids and, you know, that you do say, hey, we're Persian and Asian and, like, we do actually still celebrate some of the things that our families, you know, still think are important, right? I think it's inevitable that we're going to mix, actually, whether it's with this movement or not. You know, I think the fact that right now travel is accessible, travel is much cheaper than it was before. Obviously, visas are much more accessible to a lot of countries with specific passports. It's inevitable with travel that we're going to mix and mingle. You know, I think it's a good thing. I think we go with that with evolution. But you're right about maintaining culture. Is that perhaps, you know, people that get together from different cultures still maintain that and bring up a child, for example, with both cultures, and they can kind of still be in, you know, that vicinity.
I mean, there's a real potential for governments to change policy, obviously, in the visa stuff. But how about the future of education, for instance? Do you see this movement changing the world in areas of education?
Yeah, I think education will absolutely change because what we learned in school sometimes cannot be applied in real life, and I think school is still backwards from what's actually happening in real life. You know, the skill sets, for example, of what it takes to make money, you know, on the online world. There's no degree that's called online business or digital nomad school, right? Hopefully there will be soon. But people are learning actually on their own, right? They're hiring other people, they're taking courses online. Even universities have now started to get online now too. You know, the Khan Academy, right, is a great example. Free education is another bit. And if the movement causes more people to be entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship is something that's learned on the fly, like it's learned from experience rather than actually in a classroom. So I believe education will be more experiential, more like specific location internships with startups, for example. It's learning like on the job rather than having a degree that needs to prove some sort of certification around a particular topic. And that's not all. I mean, to be a doctor, you obviously needs to be in the operating room and learn everything, you know, in a particular location. But perhaps some industries may not need classrooms anymore. You know, you can learn online and then do an internship, for example, somewhere around the world and have more access, you know, to employers and opportunities that were possibly not given to them in that location they're in, right? Because the internet is changing the way we learn, right? Through video, through groups, right? Through all these tools that we can use now to actually communicate with each other as we do the homework, for example. You know, so many tools are out there where the professor, for example, can actually share tons of things and people can create markings on a drawing and collaborate together on its online platform, which has never been done before. So I think it's definitely changing the way of how we learn and how we're going to educate because of these tools that we now have.
Are there any other, just to conclude, major ways you think that this movement is going to change the world beyond education and global community and like less barriers between cultures?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, there's so many aspects that can change. I mean, you know, the movement I can really talk about is really the work side because that's where I specialize in, right? What the movement means to me is more opportunity for people to do the things that they like doing and explore different options and versions of delivering that skill. That's what's interesting for me. So for example, you know, if you know how to do something, intangible or tangible skill, you can teach people how to do it. You can help someone else how to do it by implementing it. You can write a book about it. You can do a video course about it. I mean, same topic, 4 versions of that. You could run a live experience and invite people to learn with you in a location. That's that's a 5th version. So all of that is under one skill, delivered in 5 different ways, which is amazing for leveraging your time, leveraging your earning potential, and having you actually in front of more people that have different learning styles. Some people want to learn with you face to face. Some people actually want to do it on their own, right? And with that, I think we're going to live better lives in the sense of that we can now choose where we live based on financial status, right? We can still have luxuries of things that we enjoy without paying the price of a holiday to get it, right? It is going to change the way that we make money, but also how we value the things that we spend our money on, you know, because now we get this choice of not, going to a job and trying to make it work and then drinking it away on the weekends, for example. You know, you spend money on that. And now, if you're, for example, living in a place like Bali, where your life expenses are way lower, like it's a third of what I used to spend in Vancouver, that buys me time. That buys me freedom in the sense of that I can actually not work for a whole month to create something completely new and have the space to do it without screwing it up, you know, or falling on my face and not being able to get up from it because I've got this amount of space to go, well, I wouldn't starve. I still have got, it's easy for me to have capital. It's easy for me to have a savings. When if you think of the everyday person in a city, like very rare someone has $500 in their bank account. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So this sort of movement of location has now bought us time. It's bought us a space to be creative and experiment, which we never got to do before. You know, if I knew what I knew back in the day when I started my first business, I would not have started in Vancouver because I was taking on clients I hated. I was taking on projects I didn't really believe in because I had to pay the bills. There's this pressure of survival. And now if you go to a place like Bali or Chiang Mai or anywhere else in the world where, again, your cost of living is cheaper, you get to make that choice again. I don't want to take on that client because we're not in alignment. I don't want to take on that work just because of money. You know, I can seek out better projects, better people to work with, and still get paid. But it takes time to do that, to build that sort of, traction. So I think that's part and parcel of the benefits.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lydia.
You're welcome.
So
I'm literally